First of all, why are we talking about animal agriculture when it comes to greenhouse gases and climate change? It's deception number 2 and a smokescreen by animal rights activists to stop us from eating meat. The real problem is fossil fuels. These 3 industries are 80% of the emissions. If people really cared about emissions and food, they'd be telling people to eat less rice, which produces tons of methane. They'd also tell people not to eat potato chips, which are the #1 producer of greenhouse gases. Yes, potato chips have the #1 carbon footprint for food. The methane cows produce is part of a cycle. This is very important, everyone. Methane is a short-lived gas. It only stays around for 10 years. It's a flow gas, meaning it's recycled. It goes from the grass into the cow, into the air, and then back into the grass. We don't have more cows than 45 years ago. The herd size has actually stayed the same, so cattle is not the issue. But CO2 stays around for 1,000 years. It's a stock gas, meaning it's a one-way street. We get it deep within the ground, and it goes into the atmosphere. This is the real problem. This is what we should be worried about. Here's another view of the difference between fossil fuel CO2 emissions compared to food production and all other land uses. Which do you think the problem is? Calculations about land use are misleading. 85% of land for grazing cattle can't be farmed. What would we do with this valuable land? That is more of the stuff you don't hear about. Now we need to talk about the soil. Plants and crops mainly take from the soil, while animals give back to the soil. Remember this, plants take nutrients and need fossil fuel inputs. Animals give back to the soil with their urine and their manure. The health of a nation is dependent on its soil. This is where carbon is sequestered. Tilling the soil and growing monocrops ruins the soil. Many farms are using animals on pasture and are actually putting more carbon into the soil than they're producing. That's right. Only about 11% of a cow's diet over their life is edible to humans. They are not competing with us for food. Modern cows are actually adapted to eat grains, and they only eat them for a few months. They are fed leftover products from the creation of biofuels. It's a great system. They are recyclers. They also eat leftovers from distilling alcohol. These are things that would just go to waste otherwise and certainly aren't edible to humans. Cows take poor quality protein and turn it into high quality bioavailable protein. Cattle doubles the amount of usable protein from the food that they consume. This means calculations are off that you may have heard. They're not considering the bioavailability of the protein cows produce. Yes, they have to eat a lot and they produce some methane, but they upcycle the nutrients. This is nature's miracle. We should be embracing it. Now, this might be the biggest prehistoric-sized elephant in the room we should be talking about. What's the alternative? Spoiler alert, there is no good one. Calculations about feeding the world with only plants are incorrect in many ways. Let's dive into this. The alternative is we would just have to grow millions more acres of pesticide-soaked corn, wheat, and soy. People talk about meat like there's some magical free source of food with no impact. Remember, monocropping is the real problem. We don't have another way to grow enough food to replace meat, and this food isn't a good replacement nutritionally anyway. What about the ethical argument? 25 times more sentient animals die producing crops. Not to mention how many habitats and entire ecosystems are devastated clearing the land for monocropping. Animals are going to die for any food you produce, so you might as well get the good nutrition by eating them. Nobody is talking about this. There's no alternative or happy ending for animals in the wild. The cruel reality is they either starve or get eaten alive. Animal agriculture actually gives animals an extremely safe, comfortable life with temperature-controlled habitats and vets on site giving them perfect nutrition. Then they go through rigorous standards in the US for a quick, painless death.